Okay, this is something a little bit new for me, but you can see I'm in the studio and the paint has just basically dried off of my latest painting. It's right there, it's Albatross is what it was called, and it started about 2004, and it was on exhibition, but I felt it needed some touch-ups, some changes, so I went back and reinvestigated the painting again, and this is what I came up with. And you can see that if you saw the original, there was quite a few changes, but a few things I kept. One was this section right here. I really liked the way that section particularly looked, and it was just really rich and with this graphite type of paint that I don't even have anymore. So I kept that part because I really liked that passage. And I was reflecting on some comments that Aista Pomesto had said to me once about my paintings, and she said, you really need to simplify. This painting has such an interesting shape, but it's being lost in the painting. It's not really serving the function of the piece. And I agreed with her, and I felt the painting was nice, but I think it could have been a lot better. And so I decided to really put it aside for a while, not look at it. And then now in 2012, here I am working on it again, and it was just finished. I mean, this is like brand new, just finished. And I put the last white paint strokes on this particular section here. And you can see the materials, right? You can see the paintbrushes right there. This is the little paintbrush I used. And it's in excellent shape. I've been really taking very conscientious care of the paints. You can see here the little bit of white paint that's still left. So this is kind of a real documentary of pieces in progress. And these smaller pieces over here are what I call, I tentatively call them art on a stick, but the idea was creating small pieces of art. And it was kind of a comical thing, but it turned into something actually quite serious. And there's a partially eaten bagel. And the Andy Warhol carpet that's black and collects dust. But this is the studio. There are the paintbrushes that I used, and all the different types of paint, all the different materials. a plate of food, right? Okay, because I eat in the studio. Here we are back to the business at hand, but this is Albatross, and I like the top part. That was just completely revised in a lot of different ways, and then this painting just became simpler and bluer and simpler, and I just took just so much out, but left quite a bit there. And then this black area. So they're really, you can see here there's some interesting passages here. They're really subtle. They're not real conspicuous, but they're very dark and scratched, and there's greens and blues and a whole bunch of other colors here. And then on the side, this was all copper, and then I just covered it in very simple black paint, and then had that one stripe. And the legs, I kept black and copper. I call them the legs. Became really interesting too. But the painting is really interesting. It was really, the idea was taking apart almost a kimono. I had created a number of kimono paintings, and I really liked the concept. So I really wanted to create sort of a large constructed kimono painting. And this is all wood. So this is wood covered in canvas. So this is a fairly heavy, it's a substantial piece. So hanging it's kind of an ordeal too, because it's all wood and canvas. I mean, we'll probably I'm thinking of simpler ways to do things, lighter ways to do things, because it is kind of a cumbersome piece. That's why I called it Albatross. That's a small canvas. There's some of my golden paints, which I do use. Some of the various vehicles. But this is kind of like a real big departure for me to work, in such a simplified form. And the inspirations, I can tell you right now, I was looking at a lot of Jun Kaniko's work. And I really liked the simplicity of Japanese art and the sophisticated use of form, but yet at the same time the ability to express emotion. I didn't want to create a piece that was really cold, because I have all of these really large rectangular shapes, and then in the center piece it's all about kind of activity. And the inspiration for that came from two sources: another painting, and one night I was out on the back porch with a friend of mine, a prospective model, and he was having a cigarette, and we were looking up at the sky, and I saw the vapor trails of airplanes. And so that kind of inspired me to kind of like bring the vapor trails in. That's been sort of a motif for a number of paintings for a while now, particularly with my first triptych. And I'm also working on a second one. If I take you over here, you can see I'm working on a new triptych. So there, the blank canvases are waiting to be painted. There's the window. So this gives you kind of an idea of what the studio's like. But I thought it would be interesting to kind of see your thoughts as soon as you're finished with the painting. I mean, just as soon as it's done. And it's really hard to let go of this painting because I started in 2004 and didn't finish till 2012. So it's kind of an interesting process. So this painting, construction rather, is sort of like, my past and present coming together. So you can see here with some of the works, there are not a lot of pieces here right now. I have an exhibition going on, so a lot of pieces were out. This is a 5-part painting which I'm going to work on next, and it's sitting there in process. And that's another older painting that's being updated because I didn't really like it. I didn't think it was all that interesting, and I think it's probably more interesting now than it was when I started out. And you can see my trademark of letting the frame show the wall. And here's some other pieces here. One of my Japanese. You can see how far they've come. You know, really literal Japanese paintings and drawings to something much more abstracted. And these 2 pieces are going to go to the Herberger in April for their aging show. And I have to thank Robert Pala for that one. I think he was one of the chief curators, and he's been a real advocate. Here are another, I shouldn't say here are another group of paintings, small ones. I call them almost like etudes, like a musical etude, you know, like a smaller version to kind of get ideas out. But I really like working small, you know. It's fun working large. I love working large, but sometimes it's great. That is a emboxed painting with the image of a butterfly inside of it. And these are really old. These weren't even, I don't think I'll ever exhibit these pieces, but they were created to give me a sense of what Japanese art was like from the Heian period. And there's text and poetry. If you look at it, there's poetry written inside of it. It's kind of an interesting little effect there. But it's really interesting coming from something like this that's just so, you know, really intimate with the drawings, and then moving on to something in painting like that, you know, and it's hard to believe that they came out of each other. And I had a conversation yesterday with someone about, it was last night actually, about figurative work and abstraction, because a lot of people that I know work in both, and I work in both. And there's always that school of thought that you should be in one camp or the other, but I like having my hand in both camps. Now, how I would exhibit the work, that's always an interesting question, because right now I'm thinking very abstractly, but I always wind up going back to the figures, so I might do a whole figurative show. It's hard to tell or flip. Anyhow, this is Albatross, which I think is going to have a new name. I just haven't figured out what that's going to be quite yet. But I really, really like the painting now. I mean, it's almost hard for me to leave it because I got so attached to it, because it represented sort of a simplification, a cleansing, and a more preciseness in terms of my vision. And I don't know if you can see these or not, but this is what I've been working on, these round paintings. And I love the round paintings. I had a whole slew of them here, and they really helped me kind of develop my ideas. And speaking of developing ideas, there are the little pieces that I'm working on. So they're going to be smaller, more intimate, and they're going to have little stands. The stands didn't quite work the way I thought they would work. I like the look, but they're just not substantial enough the way I would like them to be substantial. But, you know, that's something to work on. But I do like the look. So there'll be sculptural paintings that exist in 3D, and they're going to be very small. But I really like the idea of these small, intimate pieces. Anyhow, that is basically a glimpse of what it's like in an artist studio at about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. Gives you a little insight. So thank you for viewing, and you can see my website. It's www.behrmannart.com, and all of the works that I have, you know, are available. Well, if they are available, you know, let me know. Email me if you're interested in knowing more about the pieces, or if you'd like to acquire them. You know, because patronage is always a good thing. You know, it's always good having patrons to help finance these projects, because the storage and the exhibition, you know, it's something we're working on here. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, so we're always working to get people, find people interested in helping develop the arts. Have a great day, and hope you visit the website www.behrmannart.com, and, you know, email me with any questions you might have about the work and where it can be seen. Right now, it's at the Gaslight Inn in Glendale, Arizona, and hopefully there'll be more exhibitions to come. I'm working on hopefully having them going to Europe at some point. Thank you for viewing this little impromptu, you know, moment in an artist studio.